Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the 10X stage here at GITEX 2020. It's very exciting to see you here, and thank you for cutting your lunch break short because you wanted to catch all the pearls of wisdom that will be shared amongst our wonderful panel. Is he fast asleep? Azhar, are you sleeping? Oh, just checking. No, he's not. He's with us, which makes it even better. Fantastic. My name's Dave Crane, and I've been given the wonderful job of hosting the panel today and sharing with you a number of different ideas about how Edge, 5G, and so on will come together. Now, this actual stage is called, this section is called Boosting Efficiency in Business and Industry with 5G, and our panel brings together many of the key players involved in the industry, sharing the power and potency of 5G from speed and capacity. So everything from covering do as a telco operator, providing the 5G network joined in by the world's leading suppliers of data centers, cloud computing, and security software. All the companies that are represented on stage collaborate on projects around the world, so they all get on. Normally with a panel, you have to do social distancing, even with no COVID, because they kick each other to get to say what they want to say. But these guys are good with it anyway. So what we're going to be doing is looking at a glimpse into the minds of the people that are shaping the B2B industry and sectors that are going to benefit from our new technology. So before we start anything, we're going to go up to the big screen, where I know he's going to be wide awake. We're going to be joined by Azhar Sayeed, who is the Senior Director of Global Telco Technical Developments for Red Hat. And I don't know if you can see me. Normally I'm on the big screen there. Can you see me and hear me, Azhar? Can you see me? I'll give you a wave at that camera over here. Is that a yes? There you go. It's like one big happy family with different dads across the world. So I've got a question which I'm going to start with you. First of all, whereabouts are you right now? Where are you calling from?
Oscar, it looks like I am having some, I couldn't hear your question, but I could see you very clearly on the video. Hopefully, I just want to say hi to everybody. Hopefully everybody's okay.
Okay.
Can you hear me okay, if you can gesture?
You're looking
Perfect.
good. You're looking good. I'll just get straight into this.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so here's the question. What are the main challenges with respect to deployment of 5G, and how do you see telcos and service providers addressing these challenges and transforming their businesses with 5G? So over to you, Azhar.
All right. Let me just start off very quickly. I'm sorry, Oscar. Oh, you can hear me. Good. Let me just start off very quickly by saying a few things. First of all, thank you so much for the invitation. I really appreciate this. I hope, I'm sorry I couldn't be live on the panel. Now, I've had the opportunity to talk to a number of providers around the globe, and I've seen their journey of digital transformation. I've seen their journey specifically around 5G. And universally across the globe, there are two challenges that all telcos are seeing, depending on where they are with respect to spectrum allocation and fiber to the last, cell tower. Now, those two universal challenges aside, in terms of infrastructure, there are, spectrum availability and availability of fiber to that particular last mile configuration. There are a number of other challenges that we are seeing with respect to 5G on cloud and virtual, with respect to 5G for telcos. As you all know, 5G is all about cloud and virtualization. Cloud is the underpinning for deployment of 5G control plane and control functions. And cloud provides resiliency, flexibility, and more importantly, ubiquity. Most of the implementations, or all of the implementations of 5G core today are based on, are cloud native, and they use cloud principles to actually deploy that particular platform. Now, 5G, as we also know, brings about the context of edge. I mean, you can deploy edge independent of 5G, but 5G is kind of driving the entire edge conversation. because you want to provide those low latency services. If we all know about 5G, there are three major underpinnings: massive IoT, ultra reliable, low latency service, and EMBB, enhanced mobile broadband with very high speed bandwidth. What 5G is about is bringing all of these three things together at scale. And so a lot of the people talk about, the moment they say 5G, they talk about, oh, well, I can get this sub-millisecond or sub-10 millisecond service. Absolutely true, but that's not possible without separation of control and user plane, and that's not possible without the deployment of edge compute with 5G RAN. So these are the things that 5G brings to the table, and for telcos to actually understand and go and deploy all of this while continuing to operate an existing 4G network and deploy the non-standalone model is something that is interesting for them, also at the same time a little bit challenging for them. Especially if they don't have spectrum, how do you reform spectrum and how do you actually allocate enough amount of bandwidth so that you can provide these capabilities and these services? Two, they have to completely change their operational models. They have to change and revamp their consumption of infrastructure. They have to now consume cloud-based services, cloud-based capabilities. They have to now procure more software because this is all software driven. So these are some changes that they have to inherently make to deploy them. I've been fortunate to be part of some of these journeys in terms of initial deployment for some telcos. And what I have found that the way they are successful in addressing some of these challenges is through automation, is through careful planning, is through, because it's all software-driven infrastructure, is through putting the right policies and procedures and capabilities in place to actually softwareize the infrastructure. And when you softwareize the infrastructure and you start from that point on, then you can easily add 5G capabilities and 5G services on top of that. So for a person asking a question, how should I go about it? What should I do about it? First thing is to look at how much of your existing 4G components are running in software. Look at virtualization, look at cloud native contexts. See if you can start to deploy those. Then look at your RAN. Can you actually convert your existing LTE RAN into the split RAN architecture as defined by 3GPP and endorsed by ORAN, and as they're working through defining those interfaces. So make sure you try to address that, learn through those experiences, then add new radio capabilities for 5G, then add new 5G core, and start to go deploy those. Now, how are telcos actually transforming their business with this? Most of the services that are being offered today in 5G are related to FWA and consumer 5G. FWA stands for fixed wireless access. While it's absolutely true that people talk about 5G in the context of ultra reliable low latency, but we haven't seen a lot of ultra reliable low latency services being offered just yet. Primarily because I think a lot of infrastructure needs to be deployed at the edge near the RAN CU to be able to really realistically offer those ultra reliable services. Two, we also hear a lot about network slicing with respect to 5G. We have seen some discussions and some preliminary deployments of slicing, but not at a massive scale that I would have expected. So these are some of the things that telcos are trying to do. But in terms of monetizing their business, in the existing one, it's mostly around FWA. It's around consumer cellular or consumer 5G. While we know that that's not sustainable from a business perspective, because from a business angle, just asking and providing people more bandwidth and asking them, and people will not pay more just for a higher speed connection, because it's almost taken for granted by the consumers. So they need to see more. They need to see a gaming platform, perhaps. They need to see a set of services associated with that platform, with that high-speed platform, where they can pay an additional $5 or $10 per subscriber. So those are the challenges, I think, in terms of transformation of their business, in terms of transformation of their operational models, in terms of transformation of their infrastructure. So take a look at that. If you're a telco, you need to be worried about all of these. transformation of the infrastructure, transformation of the operational model, and then transformation of overall business with respect to 5G. And we as Red Hat have been working with these telcos, with these providers, to understand their requirements, their challenges, and build software platforms, software capabilities, and tools
Azhar, I'm going to
so that their job becomes a lot easier when they go and deploy a 5G. And they can actually reliably deploy it and reliably monetize those capabilities in their infrastructure.
Thank you very much, Azhar. That's a wonderful brief 2 or 3 minutes, as we agreed. Thank you so much, and thanks to our panel. Goodbye. No, seriously. Let me introduce you. Thanks, Azhar. I'd like to introduce you to the rest of the panel. It's very rude of me not to have mentioned first. Our second guest, Dr. Chris Cooper, is the General Manager for a Data Center Group for Lenovo. That's Middle East and Africa and Turkey. And next to him, we have Dr. Ayman Elnashar, who's a VP and Head of Technology Research and Development for Do. And just on the side there, but not last or least, we have Claude Schuck, who's the Regional Director for Veeam Software. And we have a number of questions to share with you guys in the time that we have, and hopefully get a chance to go back to Azhar before we complete it. I'm going to ask you each a question, but if you have something to jump in on somebody else's question, feel free to do that. I must state 60 to 90 seconds rather than the 15 to 20 would be better as an answer. So let's start with you, Chris. What differentiates competitors in your market in helping clients maximize their IT infrastructure with 5G?
So that's a very interesting one, Dave. Obviously, I'm here representing Lenovo, but I think for our customers and partners at the moment, it's really about a question mark of where are we going to use 5G? What are the use cases? A lot of people think that 5G was designed for video streaming on a mobile phone. Definitely not the case. Dr. Ayman will attest to that. And it really was designed with the concept and principle of industrial IoT. So there we need to look at the B2B business rather than necessarily the B2C and the C2C. From a competitive standpoint, most of our competitors are not yet geared up and don't have solutions readily available for edge computing running 5G. So we're in a very unique position at the moment. And obviously we're working with a large number of the telecommunication customers. In fact, we're working with all industries on building out those solutions, Dave, that really look at leveraging the new use cases for 5G in industry. So whether that's retail, whether it's manufacturing, whether it's in the government sector, energy, every single industry vertical will look to use 5G and leverage it. And I'll just leave one other final point. If I use the analogy, so I was in the telco industry when 3G came to the market, okay? If you compare 3G with 5G, 3G was a technology looking for a market. This time around with 5G, it's the market that's driving the need for that new technology, this industrial IoT approach. So it's quite a unique and strong position that we now have the market that's driving the need for this technology. And for our, from our customers, it's about leveraging that and taking the most.
Thank you. I'm just exercising my social distancing. Nothing personal if I walk away a little bit. Dr. Ayman from Do, if I may, how would you summarize Do's cloud transformation? And also, could you give us some insight into the journey that your network is going through and the future plans of what people can expect with Do?
Thank you. So let me start by our cloud transformation journey, as highlighted also by Azhar, that 5G, it's all about virtualization and cloudification. And we have started the journey back in 2016 by consolidating our infrastructure for IT and network at the first step. And then we have moved into virtualization of our bucket core at the first. Very important network workload to be virtualized. So we have started back in 2018 to virtualize the bucket core. And as of today, I can highlight that we have like almost 90% virtualization of the telco and IT workload. Not only virtualization, but virtualization with automation. So we have our OpenStack cloud where we have deployed an NVO on top of it. And we have another cloud where our private cloud where we have deployed a hybrid cloud with automation to integrate with public cloud. So we have started with the virtual EPC, and we were able, thanks for future-proof technologies, adapting the future-proof technologies, we have we were able to launch our 5G NSA back in May 2019, and I believe this was among the first in the region. We have achieved the peak throughput at that time 1.2 to 1.3 gig. Later in the same year, around November, we have demonstrated 2 gigabit per second. I believe this was the highest throughput over single carrier, and accordingly, even with dual carrier, we were close to demonstrate 4 gigabit per second. We will not stop here because 5G is not about throughput only. It's about a complete use case, a complete ecosystem. So we are, once we have deployed our 5G NSA, we are preparing right now to go into 5G SA. So the same core that we have deployed based on virtualization, with software upgrade, we will be able to move into native cloud with microservices on the same infrastructure. And it's a very important step. We are not going to change the infrastructure thanks to virtualization and cloudification. This is from the core perspective. From the access network perspective, we have close to 1,700 sites as of today between two different bands. We have deployed in 3.5 gigahertz band and on 2.6 gigahertz bands. As of today, we have like 30% outdoor coverage, and we are expecting to reach 80% by end of this year. And before GITEX, we plan to cover Dubai by 90% to serve, before Expo, we plan to reach to 90% coverage. So this is, in a nutshell, our current situation in 5G.
Fantastic. There's a lot of exciting stuff happening in the future of that as well, which is very good. And I'd like now to move on to Claude Schuck, who's the regional director for Veeam software. Now, we had a long chat about it yesterday, about the role of what you do. What are the implications to 5G networks of enterprise IT, and also what are the trade-offs between data center architecture being more flexible and mobile on hand, including, as nobody wants to mention, cybersecurity, which has to be an issue involved in this.
Yeah, so thanks very much. So I think in life, as in business, there are game changers. This is a game changer, I think, in my view. And it's not about only the connectivity, right? I mean, that's the one thing. If businesses today look to increase revenue, enhance their business services, there's always one thing that comes up. There's always,
Oscar,
how are we going to get there? How are we going to get connected? How are we going to get the data? Data is the spin-off of this whole 5G technology. And that's the gold, right? That's the sugar, and that's the gold that you're looking for. So at the edge, on those devices, I mean, we look what's happened in this pandemic. Overnight, the four walls of the data center were removed, overnight. And all of a sudden, all data and transactions happened across way outside of the data center. So I think having access to that data is going to be your differentiator. And I always mention three things. You know, your data is always going to back up your data, right? You have to be able to manage your data. But the one that talks to 5G is you need to be able to unleash your data. When you unleash the data, you unleash value. And I think this 5G is going to bring that to the table, in my view.
I agree with you completely. The issue of how things progress is always very exciting. We may touch on the cybersecurity issue with more detail because the biggest fear for many people is, where does that data actually belong? Is it belonging to the people? Is it belonging to the cloud? Is it belonging to the government where you're based? I just want to throw it generally to our committee. What are your thoughts on that?
I think, Dave, from a cybersecurity standpoint, we also need to take into account there's government legislation and data governance that impacts in different ways in different countries. I think the biggest concern that any user has, actually, of moving towards edge and IoT is security. And that's fundamental. When I mean security, I'm not just talking cybersecurity, because what you're physically doing is taking infrastructure that normally resides in a secure, well-defined environment of a data center and moving it outside of that secure environment to the edge. This could be on a wall in a store, in a retail store. It could be, in a roof space. It could be just sat on a shelf. People can see it. People can touch it. So it's about building the inherent security into that. And that's where the data is residing at the edge. So for us, in our edge computing devices, we have accelerometers in there. So if anyone moves it, tries to tamper with it, remove the lid, it will delete the encryption keys of the data storage inside that device, protecting the customer's data. That will then go back to an administrator and advise this is what's going on. So it's much broader than just cybersecurity. It's looking at the overall physical security as well.
Absolutely. On that point as well, Dr. Ayman, you'll be looking after B2B, but a lot of B2C will be involved in that as well. And for many people, their perception of 5G is that's what started coronavirus. Now, we've moved past that now, but there will be that question about what does that mean to your consumer too. So what are your thoughts on that?
So let me talk about especially for the 5G. So we are opening our 5G network today for the consumer, and everyone have a 5G phone. He can experience the 5G services. And for the B2B and for the enterprises, we have special even offers and specific bundles for the enterprises where we can offer up to 100 gig, 200 gig for the enterprise, along with 5G router, which can serve SME, for example, okay, or even in your home. So you can enjoy the 5G speed that we are offering today, up to 1.5 gigabit per second. Very important point for the edge and when you watch the content, because this is our next evolution that we need to extend beyond the data center. I'd also highlighted by other colleagues that we need to go beyond the data center. We need to send the content close to the user. And in this case, for example, cloud gaming, or if you have an enterprise with 1,000 CCTV and you need to push or offload such huge traffic and to conduct analytics on the edge, then you need to have an edge, and this edge need to be protected. You need to apply the required security rule to protect this traffic and to meet the regulatory requirement as well. We are conducting some POCs now, for example, with Lenovo, with other partners as well, on the edge, with hosting the data on the edge, conducting analytics on the edge, and meeting the security requirement on the edge as well.
Thank you. Claude, can I ask you about the partnerships and relationships? Because part of the perception for the end user, whether it's a business or a consumer, is they want to feel that whoever's involved in the whole process have got a great relationship going on. How important is it when it's choosing those partners to get them to be effective?
Yeah, I think you need to look at your partners and your ecosystem as if, and there's got to be a sense of trust, right? Because when you're dealing with it, you're dealing with your business, right? Your IP. And when you put those goggles on and you see that you have to protect and you got to manage and you got to grow that, you need to look at a circle of partners that you can trust, that are credible, and that are able to deliver what they say they're going to deliver.
Absolutely. We're going to throw a question open to the audience, by the way. If anybody's got a specific question for our panel, then we have microphones there and there. If you just stand behind it, socially distanced from a microphone, then I'll move to you in the time that we have. So with a question to our panel now, which feel free to answer, or if we get you all to answer as well, it's about the fact that with 5G, Edge and Internet of Things all coming together, what is the advice that you would give to leaders who want to embrace and get into this space and get the most of it? What questions should they be asking of themselves to be really at the forefront? Because people are into it now with the digital, but what do they do? Because it's new. No pressure. Chris.
No pressure. Thanks, Dave. Look, I think I'm going to turn it on its head. Rather than a question, I'm going to make a statement, if I may. 5G is here. And as I said, the market is actually driving the need for this technology. We're not seeing it proliferate to the same extent that perhaps we'd expect, but there's a vast opportunity. So for every customer, irrespective of what industry you're working in, we need to look at this as not, heck, I've now got to invest in 5G infrastructure, but look at it in a different way. It's a different mindset. And recognize that there's a great opportunity with 5G to do things differently, to get closer to your customers, to do the analytics at the edge. You know, we all know about the vast data that's now been generated outside of traditional data centers and cloud. That's growing, and that's growing at a fast rate. To do that, you have to look at investing in your strategy around 5G-enabled solutions. So we're working, you know, with the likes of the telco operators on, at the end of the day, they've got a challenge, right? We're costing them a lot of money. Rolling out a 5G network is not cheap. So we're working together now to look at how can we help. I'm going to use the word monetize, but really what I'm talking about is building solutions. And it comes back to the discussion you said there about partnerships with Claude. We don't have everything, so we partner with the likes of Do, we partner with Veeam and with other ISVs on building those solutions. So talking to customers, understanding the business problems you're trying to fix, and looking at how with 5G, with Edge, with IoT, we can bring about those solutions for you.
I'll throw it straight to Dr. Ayman because you are very much at the sharp end of rolling out these solutions to customers across the region. So how do you do that to educate them?
So let's take one step back. We started our journey with IoT back in 2015, actually, and we are the strategic partner for Smart Dubai, and we have deployed a horizontal IoT platform where we can connect several use cases. For example, fire alarm building, we can connect it to the IoT platform that we have deployed starting 2016. What I can see with the 5G, it's very important domain is the ultra reliable low latency. So lower latency along with IoT, you can unleash a new set of use cases, such as smart factories, such as remote surgery, such as smart board. So a lot of use cases combining IoT, horizontal IoT platform that can accommodate several or different use cases, ultra reliable low latency, very high throughput or massive broadband. In addition to the edge, I believe we are ahead of a lot of new use cases that will be able to monetize to justify the investment with the 5G.
And again, to Claude, I mean, in terms of leadership, what would you see as the area that you would recommend they should be examining?
In terms of the business
of leaders who are making these decisions as well.
So I think, and I spoke about those businesses earlier, about all of them having great ideas for new business ventures, and the challenge being the connectivity. That's now being removed. I bet there's 100 projects now that make business sense because you're able to operate at the edge and you're able to generate that data in the here and now, right? We are about here and now. There's many of those failed projects I would look at bringing back to the table. And I'm always with an answer first, guy, right? What is the outcome you're looking for? And let's work backwards from that, because now we have all the enablers around that to make it work.
That's great. I don't know if Azhar, can you hear me? Okay.
Yes, Dave, I can hear you.
Wonderful. That's a pleasure. Well, first question is, whereabouts are you? I know you have snow, and we don't have any in Dubai, so where are you now?
I'm in Boston, Dave.
Oh, well, you've always got snow, even when it's summer in Boston. As briefly as you can, without going on, what's your thoughts? Your recommendation to leadership about how 5G, Edge, and IoT can be combined to grow them in the future?
There are a few things, Dave, that come to mind. I think Dr. Ayman actually said it very well, and some of the other panelists as well. My recommendations over and above what some of the panelists have said is don't try to revolutionize everything and build your entire infrastructure overnight. It's not going to happen. It requires a lot of investment. It requires a lot of time and effort. Make incremental changes. Leverage the power of software. Leverage the power of open source. Things are being disaggregated for a reason, that you can actually build best of breed infrastructure, pick the components that are best of breed, integrate them together to build new services and capabilities that Dr. Ayman just described a moment ago. Leverage that power of open source, right, by building horizontal platforms. Don't box yourselves into the same methods and methodologies that you have previously done by picking these vertical silos, right? Build a horizontal platform, build an open platform on which you can bring in different kinds of software, different kinds of capabilities to deploy 5G and these new types of services. If you're worried too much about security, don't be, because you know what? People have enough experience now to operate these type of cloud infrastructures and to operate data securely. There's a new computing paradigm called zero trust, which I think one of the panelists briefly alluded to in terms of removing the encryption keys and so on. There are so many different technologies that have come up, things like network bound disk encryption, zero trust computing, which means you never ever trust any piece of data without its appropriate authentication that's built into it. So these principles are being deployed, these principles are being adopted. So in my opinion, these are really powerful paradigms. These are changes or inflection points in technology that are happening. Leverage that, bring that in, build a horizontal platform, and build that particular infrastructure.
Thank you. That was lovely. Right, one question, by the way. We've got a gentleman here. If you'd just like to introduce yourself and then ask your question, and then briefly we'll let our panel answer everything, and then that's almost time for us. So please, who are you? Is the mic on?
Right?
Microphone's on? Yep. Please go ahead.
Hello. Yeah, thank you, gentlemen. I am Amir Shah. I am a cybersecurity engineer, offensive security.
I can't hear you. Sorry, can't hear you.
Hi.
Is that on loud enough?
I think I can hear myself. I'm not sure you can hear me.
Speak a little bit more into the microphone, see if that makes it a bit easier.
Yeah, only because of the COVID thing I was like...
I know, but nobody else has touched it, so you're clean, you're good.
Yeah, thanks.
We'll throw it in the bin when you're finished, it's okay.
Sure. So I am Amir. I work for Etisalat, and I am into offensive security. I am a hacker. I break stuff. So my question about 5G and IoT devices in particular will be like same technology, like web technology. We are again going into the same loop where we are focusing on quality of the service we are providing, but not focusing on the security part. I again see a lot of IoT devices being vulnerable to default credentials. A lot of stuff which you mentioned is not being implemented properly. I want you to tell me what should be the goal of humanity towards the new technology, especially 5G, in terms of cybersecurity. Because what you mentioned, not all IoT devices implement.
Okay, so that question, I don't know if you got a chance to hear it. We'll keep the answers as brief as we can do, time-wise. So it's again about security, about choosing between what's the right of a human being versus what's the right of the companies that are running the edge and the cloud technology. So it's not a controversial question at all, but I'm going to throw that at our panel. As nobody wants to answer.
Go on, Dave. Go on, Dave.
I can answer.
I know you can. Azhar, you go first.
Okay, I'll go first. Look, any type of technology, right, there are technical capabilities to implement all of the security mechanisms. If you don't utilize them and if you don't operationalize them, then you cannot build secure infrastructure. No, simply. You have to change your operational policies. You have to think about security right from the get-go. The good part is, these days people talk about DevOps. Well, they're also talking about DevSecOps, right? Development. So you have to build security from the scratch. I've actually seen some incredible mistakes people make. Some really large telcos who have started to design, plan, implement their infrastructure based on cloud and virtualization principles, but never thought about security, to their detriment, and then later on went back and expensively changed their entire operational policies and models and procedures to actually incorporate security as an afterthought, which was quite expensive, not the right way to do it. You absolutely have to think this as part of the design. Think about DevSecOps principles, not just DevOps, and absolutely do it from built into the platform, not as an afterthought.
Great answer. Chris, would you like to take it?
And just to reiterate that, it really is about building it in as a fundamental, building in security, whether it's physical, cyber, whatever, right from the fundamentals. I think the other thing to note here is treat this as an opportunity, not a threat. There's an opportunity behind the availability of 5G, and embrace it. I just encourage you to embrace it. We as Lenovo, we've already bought into this as a concept. We've got 5G handsets, okay? We've got 5G PCs, and we've got 5G edge infrastructure. It's an opportunity, not a physical threat.
There you go. Dr. Ayman.
So let me take it from different angle. It's very important with the IoT and with the edge. You are going to have a partnership with the hyperscaler, the public cloud guys. And this is very important that you are going to open your ecosystem and to expose your APIs for third party to start to innovate and develop. You cannot keep your system open. And this is also came with a lot of security concerns and a lot of security requirement that I believe with the hyperscaler, they have different type of encryption, different type of the keys that you can adapt and you can own and you can protect your infrastructure. But definitely we are heading towards an open world with adapting an open edge that can allow third party, and I think there is a lot of announcement happening in the US and in UK as well, a partnership between the telco or service provider and the hyperscaler where they can host the application on the edge, open the edge, open APIs for the third party, build in the container and the Kubernetes, and you can develop your application securely and deploy it on the edge.
Makes sense. And Claude, would you like to add
I'll
to
be
that?
10 seconds. So for me, specifically on security and data, I like to say it's not if, it's when, right? It's not if, when something's going to happen. So you're going to be breached. What does your recovery strategies look like? How are you going to recover? Have you worked out your recovery strategy? Because that's what you're going to need to survive, rather than worry about when the threat hits me. How quickly can I recover and continue my business?
Fantastic, thank you. With that, we've actually come to the end of time. I'll just check with Oscar, time-wise. We can ask another question. Fantastic. Are you sure? Excellent. I can see Azhar in Boston is going great. We can get stuck into some more. Here's the thing. Whenever you get new technology, I know you're already planning things to implement with a new technology. What surprises will we get from the new technology coming together that people might not have expected? As in, which new industries, which elements do you think will be a spin-off as a direct result? Not least the fact that with 5G, I know that we'll have a wonderful hologram of Azhar being here, just sitting on the side, and it'll be in perfect transformation for us here. What else do you see as potential spin-offs that people hadn't thought about, but in your research we could throw in there? Again, no pressure.
I think, for example, let's talk about 5G, especially 5G standalone, because we have started with 5G in SA, and there is no major difference between LTE advanced, for example, and 5G standalone, just as robot. But when you are going towards the 5G standalone and deploying a low latency network, deploying a completely new core based on native cloud and containers, and you are going to invest in this. So are we going to have a use case that we can monetize? This is a very critical, or what is the critical or what is the killer use cases for the 5G standalone? We don't want to end up with the 5G as just a broadband or mobile broadband technology, and it will be like an evolution for the LTE, or going to cannibalize the LTE traffic. So what we need to work together in a collaboration mode with our partners to come up with the use case. There is a lot of use cases. As you said, hologram, we have deployed several use cases over the last 2-3 years in our stand during GITEX event, but which use case that will be massively deployed use cases that can really monetize the investment on 5G?
Absolutely. I think one of the things that'd be brilliant is just the way it'll impact on sports, because of the fact that right now people are distanced, but there's ways that will be really impactful for that. I think we come to the end of time, actually, before we get a chance to send that round. When Oscar goes like that, he's either dancing to the village people or he's saying, it's time out. Okay, we caught you out. Oh, by the way, I shouldn't mention it, but yesterday Oscar's wife delivered a lovely little baby girl in Sweden, but he was here for GITEX. So a round of applause for Oscar. Well done, Daddy. We salute you for your hard work. I mean, from being here, not whatever makes babies. Moving on. So I've got to say thank you to the wonderful panel here. First of all, to Dr. Chris Cooper from Lenovo, to Dr. Ayman from Do, and of course, Claude Schuck from Veeam, and all the way from Boston, our very dear friend, Azhar. Good luck with all that snow, by the way. I'm sure it's on the way. And thank you to you guys as well for encouraging with the questions. And so thanks to the panel. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.